Yo, welcome back to another video right here on Freewheel Photos. Today's video is going to be a little bit different, but I thought it was important to talk about file management inside of ON1 Photo Raw. There are a lot of misconceptions, and I just want to break down how ON1 Photo Raw treats the photos. And so let's just go ahead and dive right into the video. And of course, if you find any value in this video, go ahead and smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you like to get content featuring ON1 Photo Raw tutorials. So when you enter into ON1 Photo Raw, you may be on a screen that looks something like this. And as you can see here, I have my catalogs, browse, and presets. When you click on browse, what you're really doing is going to your photos or your files, if you will, on your computer. As you can see, I'm inside of my creative drive here. That's where I house a lot of my images, but I also have my Macintosh HD. I have a video drive. It's where I put a lot of the videos. These are all drives connected to my computer. So if you're using ON1 Photo Raw, that probably already makes sense. Now, I got a diagram here. This will help illustrate a little bit about how ON1 Photo Raw really accesses your images, what it does to them, all the way to the final production of your exported image. So here is where I have all of my files on my hard drive ready to go. And this is after you upload them from an SD card. Maybe you already had them saved on your hard drive and you just want to access them inside of ON1 Photo Raw. There's a lot of different scenarios that can get you to this point right here. But inside of this black box are these blue files, which are your photos. All right. These are on your hard drive. ON1 Photo Raw can read your structure. Now, what's not depicted on this particular diagram is ON1 Photo Raw can also duplicate, rename, do all kinds of stuff that affects the files over here before that are more permanent, but actually change the file structure. So renaming the images and things like that. I have another diagram that explains that. So once ON1 Photo Raw reads the image, and you process your image inside of ON1, then it creates what's known as a XMP file. I'll bring that up here in a second. The XMP file is how ON1 keeps your raw images or your JPEGs, really just any image that it's editing, non-destructive. If ON1 were to write directly to the file, you would end up getting a file with that you won't be able to come back and make edits to. So when you're editing a photo, what you're really doing is updating the information that ON1 is using to generate a preview of what that particular image looks like. That's why when you hit the backslash key above your enter keyboard, you can see the original file. So essentially, when you hit the backslash key, it disables your XMP adjustments so you can see what the base file looks like. All right. Inside of the base file are all of your adjustments. Now, there are some destructive edits inside of ON1, and I'll show those here in a second. But those, the main one is the magic eraser. Once you erase pixels, you have altered the image. So be cognizant of that. If you are editing on an image, make sure that you want to erase those pixels. Now, one other note that I want to make is ON1 Photo Raw only generates an XMP file for the photos that you actually apply edits to using ON1. Now, XMP files, I also want to note that XMP files are a universal I guess it's metadata that tells the program that you altered this. Now, there are some unique things inside of ON1 that would not be able to read inside of other programs like Darktable, Lightroom, Luminar, things of that sort. But basic exposure information inside of an XMP file, there are ways that you can convert the XMP to be read by those particular software. I don't do that too often. I just want to make it known that it can be done. I don't recommend it because every program treats a raw file a little bit different based off of their algorithm. Now, if you have files inside of the same folder, because again, ON1 is reading the files from a folder, and when you make your edits, you get these XMP files, but maybe you'll just have some files over here that you don't want to edit, and that's perfectly fine. They won't get an XMP file. Now, one of the questions that you may have at this point is, well, how big is an XMP file? These are relatively small. Now, obviously, the more edits, the more layers that you add onto an image and all these things, the XMP file can start to grow. All right. So the more effects you add in there, the bigger the XMP file gets because it has to store all of these adjustments that you're trying to make to the image. So that's why it's always a good idea to minimize the amount of effects that you throw onto an image if you're concerned about storage space. But I will say storage is fairly affordable now. So you can buy a 4 terabyte hard drive for almost just a little over $100 in most cases. You can definitely get a 1 terabyte hard drive, not talking SSD, by the way. You can definitely get a 1 terabyte hard drive for under $100 with all the sales and things that Best Buy and Walmart, these drives are on sale. So I won't go too much further into that. So then what ON1 does, if you say, okay, I like the way that this file rendered the XMP, I like the edits that I have, I want to generate a completed file. What ON1 does when you go into the export module, right, it does its calculations and all its computer wizardry, and then it starts to merge your original file with your XMP file and then turns it in to a new file. This is the file with your edits baked into it. At this point, and it's very important that you note that when you export an image with all of the settings, you essentially burned the XMP file into your original file. Now, as long as you're not saving it as the same name, and it's very well, one, you won't be able to overwrite your raw file unless you save these in DNG. If you save these in the native format of .nef or CR3 or anything like that, if that's what you're rendering, you're not going to be able to export it from ON1 in that format. You'll only be able to export from ON1 into .dng, which is essentially a universal form of digital negative. It can be read by any program that can read digital negatives, whereas this .nef, .opf, I think is the Olympus file, and the .cr3, the Canon. If you're using RAW, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, don't worry about it. If you're saving these as JPEGs, however, or if these are TIFF files that you're uploading, or I guess accessing, not uploading, because we don't have to import, then this, you could potentially overwrite these images if you save it with the exact same file name and file type. So when you're exporting, just be cognizant, and if you're saving it into the exact same location. So there's a lot of similarities that you would have to have in these files, and ON1's going to ask you, do you want to overwrite? I highly recommend that inside of this folder, you create a subfolder that is your final exports of these images. All right. Label that 1-final export, so that way when you sort, it brings the numbers to the top. Your final export folder will always be at the top of that folder, so when you go looking at it on your hard drive, you'll be able to find it. That's just another organization tip. So Very important that you understand that. But essentially, you are burning the XMP file into the original file, which makes a whole new file. Now, I won't get into the quality of these files because that's not for today's video. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, though, before I show you a little bit of a live demonstration inside of ON1, is how ON1 Photo Raw imports photos. This is something that I do get a lot of questions, and I think that it's fair for you to understand. So what we're looking at is on the SD card, or whatever your memory card is, you have files. You plug this into your computer, and then you open up ON1 and you click into the import tab or import module, and you'll be presented with a screen that gives you some options. You get more options than these, but these are the ones that most people are probably going to use, which you're going to select the location that you want to save on your hard drive. You're going to rename a file potentially, because I don't know about you, but my camera just spits out images with a bunch of serial numbers. And then it'll just have in sequence the next number. What that does for me is, as soon as I reformat this card, my camera just starts over from 1. It doesn't remember that there was 800 images on the SD card the last time. And, you know, it's very important that you reformat your cards inside the camera. I don't know if it's been proven, but I have found that it is reliable to save the memory cards if you reformat them using the camera, instead of just deleting them by coming over to the SD card or whatever, double clicking and deleting. That is my recommendation. Always format inside the camera. Bonus tip, not a part of this particular video today. With that being said, there's some information. That's what this yellow dot, and this information are these two items. There's some metadata that you're going to be able to write onto your files when they go into your hard drive, and it's important that you know what you're putting in there. I highly recommend you put your copyright information. I've gotten to the point now in some cameras, I have my copyright information actually in the camera, so when I take the photo, it just burns my basic copyright information into the image while I'm taking it. So I don't have to worry about it during the upload, because I don't use the import feature from ON1 in most cases. But if you are using this, just know that you have an option to add metadata such as your copyright info, and then your files are changed, obviously, from the yellow dot to the red dot. Not that that's bad, just saying that it's a new different, the same file with new tags added to it. And that gets saved onto your hard drive. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at ON1 real quick. As you can see, inside of ON1, we have my hard drives selected over here, or these are the hard drives that are attached to my computer. Now that we know how it kind of works, we know that when I click on this, I'm going to access the hard drive. Now, I have a ton of, this is a very messy hard drive. I'm in the works of fixing this, which means I'm going to reformat it and just start over from the beginning. But here's a photo walk folder. And here's one of a park in Fairbanks, Alaska. We'll choose this one. Now, I pointed ON1 to Creative Drive and to this Pioneer Park photo or folder so I can look at all of the photos inside of there. This is essentially how ON1 works. Now, if I were to click on, let's say, this photo, as you can see, this is a CR3. If I hit edit, and I'm just going to make some random edits here. So, or better yet, I'm not going to be random. I'm going to hit AI Auto. So AI Auto, it just did its thing. That looks kind of cool. But I'm going to be a little bit more creative, and I'm going to throw a bleach bypass on here because why not? We'll go with strong, and that looks pretty cool, right? Really rustic, all that good stuff. So right now, ON1 has a lot of information. It just wrote an XMP file. I'm going to show you where that's at. And I'm going to hit the backspace. I turned off the preview of the XMP file, and then I just turned it back on. So now you're going to see that on the screen. Now I'm going to hit done, and this is going to take me back into my folder where the images are. You can see that it's showing that I have some edits adjusted on this image. So if I right click and you come up to show in Finder, on PC there should be something similar. It's going to bring you to a folder. I don't know if it's going to pop up on this monitor or my second one, so we'll see how that works out. Okay, so it brought me to the folder. Yours probably won't do that. I have some stuff going on here. Here, I'll just cover that up. So I edited the photo, and as you can see, it created this file right here. This is the 591 or Pioneer Park 2020 591, and then you can see Pioneer Park 2020 591 CR3. This is all of the edits to the image that I have inside of ON1. Now, this is called an XMP. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. If I hit get info, let me see if it shows up as a XMP, because this writes as a .on1. No, it's essentially by saying it's an XMP. It's like saying this is a raw photo, right? There's different formats of it. This is ON1's version of it, specifically because these edits they add up. In fact, let's go ahead and do an experiment of how they add up. So I'm going to resize some stuff here. I'm going to put this over here, and we're going to take a look at this number in the top right hand corner as I make some edits to this image. And I'm going to go a little out on making edits, or really just adding in effects. Making edits in the develop module probably won't cause too many issues. So let's go ahead and throw some sunshine in here, because that makes no sense, but we'll do it. And we're going to go ahead and throw in an antique filter. Yep, that looks like it makes sense. I'll make it red just for fun. And then we'll throw in some dynamic contrast because that makes sense. And we'll also throw in a textures filter. Textures filters, they take up a ton of resources. All right. And we'll go with something that really makes no sense whatsoever. Because I'm not trying to be creative here. I just want to show you what happens. Let's go with lighter. Okay. And then we're going to hit done. So now the image is saving all of those changes. And what it's saving is not to the actual image. It's saving to the XMP file. Now, for whatever reason, does not look like it wanted to update here. So let me minimize this for a second. I'll close you out and we'll open you back up. And now you can see that this particular file, sorry, my desktop's got all kinds of nonsense on it. This particular file has increased by 19 kilobytes. Now, This is a fairly small edit, right? The more that you start throwing layers on there, you're going to see that, one, you'll get a different photo. Let me see if I can make one of those. So we'll hit edit. I'm going to throw a layer on here. So we'll hit new, and I'll just put this photo over it because it doesn't matter. Add as layer. It's going to load the image in. Okay. And I'm going to go to the transform. Let's resize this a little bit so that way it fits over our image. Yeah, that sounds about right. Or it looks not right, but good enough for what we're doing here, right? So we'll hit save or done again. And we're gonna see, I'll fast forward through all the saving. So now our image saved, but as you can see, it didn't save here. It actually created a new type of photo. Let me see if I can find it in the gallery here. Okay, so it saved to the bottom. I fast forwarded to the end here because I didn't want to catch you guys watching me scroll through all of these. But here's the photo. What I want you to notice is it created a different type of file called a ON photo. Now, when we go back to our folder, and there's Mr. Waffles, you'll see that I have a new type of XMP file. Now, this is more of an ON1 specific file, and when I open this one up, it's going to be significantly larger. Yeah, you see, this one was 69 kilobytes. And when you start adding layers, you can get this thing up into the gigabytes. If you add a ton of layers, I mean, I can get this into 1 gigabyte probably by adding 2 more layers and some more adjustments or effects. So when you start to use your ON1 and you start making these extravagant edits, just know that you're not making the edit to the image. ON1 is reading the image, and then it is sending that image into or through all of the effects that you are putting onto it. And when you stack layers, you're creating a completely different type of render file. So what's happening is ON1 is reading this file and it's generating this file so you can see the end result of this file. So hopefully that helped someone out when it comes to file management and how ON1 Photo Raw works with images and creates XMP files and so forth and so on. If you found this video helpful, smash the like button. If you're interested in content just like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I create content for people who are trying to learn how to use ON1 Photo Raw creatively and technically. So until the next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.